Just resume your seat. Order. You are entitled to be heard in silence. I'm entitled to hear the question. Senator Abetz, continue.
Thank you, Mr President. I refer to the Prime Minister's claim that to use Section 431 as opposed to Section 424 of the Fair Work Act in the Qantas dispute would create, quote, legal uncertainty and was, quote, untested. I also refer to the fact that the Transport Workers Union boss Tony Sheldon and Barry Jackson from the Pilots Union are considering challenging Fair Work Australia's decision. Given that Section 424 of the Fair Work Act—
Senator Abetz, I'm not trying to disturb your question, but you aren't. Well, if that is the attitude, that is not the right attitude to have in this place. Senator Abetz.
Given that Section 424 of the Fair Work Act had never been used and therefore untested, and that these unions are now threatening to challenge Fair Work Australia's decision anyway, thereby creating legal uncertainty, does the Minister concede that he should have made a declaration under Section 431 and thereby avoided the grounding of the Qantas fleet?
Order. 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 Or on both sides. Order. The Minister for Tertiary Education, Skills, Jobs and Workplace Relations, and the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Evans.
Thank you, Mr President. As I remember the question, given all the interruptions between it to being asked and my rising, Mr President, the answer is no, Mr President. I've made it clear publicly and to the Senate that the government acted on the advice provided by the department about the best method for us to bring to an end the industrial disputation at Qantas, following the decision of Qantas to lock out its employees, lock out thousands of its workers, and begin notifying them that they would do that from 8 p.m. on Monday. Mr President, as we know, the Qantas then took the action of grounding its aircraft from 5 p.m. on Saturday. Our advice was that the best way of bringing the issue to a head and getting orders to terminate the action was to apply under Section 424 of the Act for Fair Work Australia to make orders terminating all industrial action, ending the bargaining period and terminating all industrial action. That was the advice we were given. That was the advice we accepted. We moved immediately to make that application to Fair Work Australia, Mr President, and as we know, Fair Work Australia convened at 9 p.m. on the evening of on that Saturday evening to begin immediately dealing with it. So, Mr President, that was the advice the government received. We acted upon it, and the references Senator Abetz make are references to an explanation which we were provided with as to why using that section was preferable to using Section 431. That was the legal advice the department provided to the government, and that did include the concerns about potential judicial review and issues of procedural fairness that might apply to the use of 431. Based on the advice we got, we took that decision, and, Mr President, it worked.
Senator Abetz.
Thank you, Mr President. If the government in fact acted on departmental advice, why did it seek in the alternative, as was the Minister's preference, a suspension as opposed to a termination of the industrial disputation? Why did the Minister do this, knowing that it would have left Qantas planes and passengers grounded?
The Minister.
Mr President, Senator Abetz again relies on newspaper reports from articles that have been published which have been wrong and misleading 4 days now, Mr. President. Mr. President, I made it clear that we acted on that advice. I also confirm for Senator Abetz that at all stages the Commonwealth Government sought the termination of all industrial action. That was my recommendation. That was the submissions made by the Commonwealth, that all industrial action be terminated. They argued that in the alternative, if Fair Work wasn't prepared to grant immediate termination, that there be at least a suspension. But the Commonwealth argued strenuously. Senator Abetz, read the transcript. Read the transcript. The Commonwealth Government, at my instruction to our advocates, argued at all times for full termination of all industrial action.
Expired. Senator Abetz.
Thank you, Mr. President. I note the minister's denial that the government sought, in the alternative, to suspend the action. Why or how does he explain this in the very first paragraph of Fair Work Australia's decision? The minister has made application for an order under section 424 of the Fair Work Act terminating or, in the alternative, suspending protected industrial action. Which was it, Minister? Or did Fair Work Australia get it wrong as well?
Expired. Order. On my right and my left. When there's silence, we'll proceed on both sides. Senator Evans.
I know Senator Abetz is getting excited, but that's exactly what I said. We argued for termination. We argued for termination, put a very strong case for termination, and we argued, if in the alternative, if termination was not granted, that a suspension be granted. That's what we put to the Commission. It's on the record. It's been in the public arena, and Mr. President, the Commonwealth's position has always been clear. We argued for a full termination. So when Senator Abetz confirms that by reading the decision, he is right. That is exactly what we argued for, Senator. We argued for full termination, and we argued in the alternative, if the Commission found, or Fair Work found, that had not been proven, if they were not satisfied to that case, that they should at least grant suspension. But I'm pleased to say Fair Work accepted the Australian Government's arguments, granted full termination, and therefore ended the dispute.
Time's expired. Order. Senator Bishop.
Thank you, Mr. President. My question is to the Minister for Small Business and Minister Assisting on Tourism, Senator Sherry. Can the Minister outline to the Senate how the Gillard government is helping?
Wait a minute, Senator Bishop. I can't hear the question. When there's silence, we'll proceed.